Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Retreadcast, the regular video podcast series for the tyre retreading industry. As usual, I'm joined by my father, David Wilson, the publisher of Retreading Business. Hello, David. What have you got planned for today's podcast?
Thank you, Richard. Well, today we've planned a special edition of the Retreadcast based on the Recircle Awards. One of the key successes of the event was the degree of engagement and inclusivity that we managed to generate from around the world. So we're delighted to be able to interview two of the winners of this inaugural event, one from Europe and one from the United States.
Brilliant. Well, I'm quite tired of presenting things in the Recircle Awards, so it's good to have some help. So in that case, I'll leave it to you to introduce the first interview.
Thanks, Richard. Our first interview today is with Leo Linkesch, who is the winner of the Employee of the Year category. He's based in Brno in the Czech Republic and is an area manager for Marangoni. We've known Leo for a long time as he's been a regular contributor to Retreading Business for many years. So we're particularly delighted that his colleagues and customers have supported him in this award. Good afternoon, Leo. How are you today?
Good afternoon, David. Thank you very much. I am well. There is a sunny day in Brno, so all is okay.
Excellent. Well, firstly, congratulations on winning one of the inaugural Recircle Awards. We wanted to talk to you today about your career in the retreading industry, as well as about your views on the retreading market in general. So let's start by asking you how you found your way into the retreading industry and how you developed your expertise in the Ex-CIS States market.
Thank you very much for this question, David. In fact, it was a coincidence. At the beginning of the 90s in Eastern Europe, where I live, there were many opportunities and many challenges when we were going from the command-oriented economy to the market economy. And to answer your question, my first, let's say, touch to retreading was when my school friend was going to a business trip to Italy, asking me to join. I was not knowing what does it mean retreading. He was telling me either, but at least you can speak to the people. So this was my first contact with retreading back early in the 90s. And just another example, we had a partner, our Czech or Czechoslovak by the time company, had a partner in Poland. We were doing business with cars. We were dealing with cars. And the Polish partner had another business, teapots. And he was telling me, well, maybe you are interested to distribute teapots in the Czech Republic. Well, tea is not so popular in Czechia like in Poland, but we were telling them, we were just buying a retreading plant in Italy. Maybe you would like to start retreading. And the owner, not knowing anything about retreading, was saying, why not? But teapots and retreading is not going well together. So the guy was saying, okay, maybe in Poland it's not working. But they had a guy in Ukraine. By that time, Ukraine was in a very bad shape. And the guy was happy to make his living selling teapots. But he was from automotive. He was an educated engineer. And when he recognized this opportunity, he was saying, okay, this could be interesting for us. So the first Czech, Polish, Ukrainian joint venture in retreading was born. Sometimes coincidences, but it was working like that. And during the time, I developed my expertise in this area. I already had experience in sales. I already knew a lot of countries in the area because it was possible to travel to East, but not to West. So I knew the East European countries. And step by step, this business and this knowledge was developed.
Excellent. So tell us something about the historical developments of retreading in Eastern Europe.
Well, retreading was known already in the 70s or in the 80s, but it was exclusively hot retreading, and frankly speaking, the quality and the image was not so good. Pre-cure or cold retreading virtually nobody knew about this industry. It was coming early 90s, and it was coming more from west to the east, meaning to Czechoslovakia, this was coming earlier than to Ukraine. To Kazakhstan, it was coming a few years after, say step by step, these developments. And also sometimes coincidences. For example, the first retreading plant in Czechoslovakia by the time, I must say I was not involved, was because a guy working for the chemical industry was supplying chemicals to the recycling industry in Germany. And he was receiving a proposal. Maybe you would like to start a private business in retreading. And he started, and today it's the biggest retreader in the Czech Republic. Václav Schubert was the name of this person. He died last year. So this was step-by-step developments. At the beginning, normally retreading was related to big fleets. When the fleets understood that there is a cost saving, they were thinking, let's start this business. But they were not believing that they will have regular and quality supply from somebody else. They were used from the past to have all under the control. So the former Softtransavto trucking companies in different countries started retreading. This mostly disappeared during the time. Now the business is related more to tire specialist and retreading specialist, and the fleets are understanding it's better to concentrate on their core business. So in the meantime, there were several ups and downs in different countries, depending on currencies, economy, politics, etc. Now we have in most of the countries quite established structure of retreading companies, which is obviously going through different changes during the time.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the challenge posed by cheap new tyres from the East. So how, in your experience of the markets in which you work, responded to the challenges posed by cheap tyres from China and the impacts of the anti-dumping regulations around the world?
You're right. This is a big challenge for everybody in our industry. In my case, I would say that the countries are not the same. There are big differences between them. And speaking about the Chinese tires, I would divide the situation into three big groups. The first one is countries which are already in the European Union, say Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, the Baltic countries. The situation is quite similar because the regulations are the same, the date of implementation of the regulations are also the same, etc. Then we have a group of countries which is related to Russia, because Russia is also a custom union with Belarus, Kazakhstan, etc. In those countries, also some kind of anti-dumping regulation were implemented. Different than in European Union, but also some kind of protection for retreading. So this was helping in Russia. But then you have countries which are in between, which are not in the European Union, which are not in the, let's say, Russia system of customs, and which have no protection. Typically Ukraine. So many tires which were going, for example, from China to Poland, were then coming to Ukraine because of the new limitation. And because of that, those countries were suffering very much. In fact, last year, the drop down in Ukraine was very, very significant. So we have different kinds of scenarios, but in all of the cases, more or less, the influence of cheap Chinese tires is significant. And it comes also to the part related to the casings, that there are less casings available. And this is the main problem in our era. Thank you.
Okay, so it seems there's a big variation in what's happened in all these different markets in Eastern Europe. Aside from the anti-dumping regulations and the problems posed by Chinese tyres, what other challenges do you expect to see in these markets in the future?
I would say the main challenge is still the same: casings availability, casings quality, at the end of the day also casing prices. And there are also some differences between different regions and between different countries in relation to regulations. Because in some countries, import of casings is prohibited or almost prohibited. In some other countries, it's possible. It's a cost factor. Some of the people are reacting in the way that they are organizing casing collections themselves in the countries where we have more quality casings and quality tires. A nice example is International Tires or Radburg, the biggest Romanian retreader, which has his own collection system since many years and which is developing it. In relation to casings, there are also other things. I would mention two. Both are related mainly to Russia. The casings are destroyed to a much higher degree than in Western countries. Different reasons from that, starting from the culture of taking care and ending with the quality of roads, including how the roads are treated in the winter. If you are using aggressive chemicals and if you have tires which are going close to the end, the chemicals are coming to the steel belts, which are destroyed, and then you have nothing to retread. And there is also other factor that I would like to mention, if you allow me. It's an important market of second-hand tires. So the casings are sometimes not coming to retreader because different dealers and sometimes even retreaders are selling the tires with some remaining millimeters of threads because it's giving them more profit and less work. So at the end of the day, there is less casings coming to the retreading shop. Plus, there is a higher percentage of rejection because of the quality than in some other countries.
We'll be going back to hear the rest of our interview with Leo Linkesch very shortly. However, we're now going over to Santa Fe Springs in California to talk to our second guest and our second Recircle Awards winner of the day. David, who will you be interviewing next?
Our second guest today is Garry Drisdelle, the owner of TireCore Intl, the winners of the Recircle Awards for the best casing and tire disposal services provider. We'll be going back the rest of the interview with Leo Linkesch shortly. However, we're now going over to Santa Fe Springs in California to talk to the winners of the award for the best casing and tire disposal services provider, TireCore Intl, where owner Garry Drisdelle is waiting to talk to us. Hello, Garry, and welcome to the Retreadcast.
Hi, David. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Well, firstly, congratulations on your success in the inaugural Recircle Awards. TireCore has had an interesting backstory in that you're a Canadian who ran a successful business in that part of the world before establishing the TireCore business in California. Could you please start by giving us some background into how and why your business has developed the way it has over the years?
Sure, David. Since we started this business in Canada many years ago, teeing off from my father, who was in the passenger tire business, in particular passenger casing procurement, we've gone where opportunity is, and we've followed the procurement trail. When we moved to California, we were looking to expand imports from Asia, something that we never really delved into heavily before. Australia, Asia, Thailand, all that area developing seemed much more feasible to do from the West Coast. than Canada.
Okay, so tell me, how is your current business structured, and from what segments does your core business come from?
Well, oddly enough, we got here during the pickup in the Chinese new tire industry delivery into the United States, and it was very turbulent times. So we actually put the initial procurement program on hold, and to our surprise, we developed the new TireCore model, which we're using, and that's basically domestic procurement of truck tire casings for the retreading industry. Thus powering the retread plants in North America from domestic products. So our current structure is really about developing the domestic business where we can put up bricks and mortar and adding value to local dealers, local trucking companies, local truck stops, and actually local small independent vendors. And that's where we're at now.
Excellent. Okay, so on your website, you place quite a heavy focus on your role in the circular economy. So can you tell us something about your business philosophy and the importance of the circular economy in the way you do business?
Well, our initial focus was the never buried, never burned philosophy. And we tried from our humble beginnings initially to divert as many truck tire casings as we could from landfills and steer them towards retread plants for retreading to be put back into service. Developing this circular economy showed us that we can take 85% of the material of a truck tire and reuse it in its current state, rather than having to dig, transport, raw materials, reassemble 85% of the raw materials to have essentially 25% put on top, 15% put on top of it as a tread in the form of a tread. So we're contributing heavily to that. And then the end diversion, let's do that as many times as we can with that volume of material before it's effectively repurposed to other usable products. And some of those, as you guys full well know, are used again in the process of making new tires.
Absolutely. I think the role of retreading in the circular economy is something that the market is becoming more and more aware of how important that is, and what opportunities there are for the retreading industry in taking advantage of the way that retreads can be environmentally friendly.
Congratulations to you guys too, David. This media format that you're doing and bringing awareness, with you gaining your media presence, it's fantastic to see because you're bringing such awareness to this industry.
Well, thanks very much. We appreciate that. Now, what I wanted to ask you was you run a consultancy program called the TireCore Superior Consulting Program. So can you tell us a bit more about that and how it works?
Well, it's a new program. It was developed in the last year. It's been in effect actually for decades. It's just more focused and structured. Customers calling, customers inquiring. They've got problems, even if they don't. The best ones so far have been the ones that don't think they have problems. It's a high-level management program, and it's basically two-tiered for the manufacturing portion of commercial tire dealers' business, in particular their retread operations, if they have retread operations attached, and even if they don't have retread operations attached. And then the second tier program is devised for consulting with smaller tire handlers in various geographical areas who want to contribute to our enterprise and develop their own business.
So what do you see as the key opportunities for TireCore looking forward, and what are your key aims for the next 5 years or so?
Well, it's a big world, isn't it? and we've just started, and we've looked at it that way. We see potential to bring value with a passion to many dealers, many fleets. There's many opportunities out there to develop small businesses, and we're contributing to a program right now that's actually doing just that. So we'd like to see more things done the TireCore way globally as far as procurement goes.
Okay, so finally, as TireCore has just been announced as the winner of the Recircle Awards in the casing and tyre disposal services category, I wanted to ask, what does that mean to you, and how do you feel this award will benefit the company?
Oh, you know, as I was telling Richard in an earlier video, I think that I'm very humbled by winning this award. It's been a lot of work, and it speaks to the passion not only from me but all our team members and all our connected people that have made this possible. You know, we look forward to being better stewards of the industry, certainly growing our business by being better stewards and bringing the value not only to our own company and customers, but, you know, reflecting that value back at how well we can repurpose the maximum amount of material towards the betterment of the environment for everyone.
Well, that's certainly very good to hear. So thanks very much for your time today, Garry. We appreciate it. And congratulations once again on your award. And we look forward to welcoming you back on the Retreadcast very soon.
Okay, so that concludes our interview with Garry. Now let's get back to our discussion with our good friend Leo Linkesch in the Czech Republic.
So how has the attitude of truck fleets to retreading changed over the years in the ex-CIS states? Are we seeing a gradual increase in the awareness of issues such as cost per kilometre, tyre maintenance issues, etc., environmental benefits, these kind of things?
There is certainly a progress in this respect, but it's a step-by-step progress, not related to all of the people. We have some fleets which are really professional and which are doing all the things up to the best Western standards. And there is a lot of people which are taking care if they have money for the next trip from Ukraine and Germany to Germany and back, and are not looking forward more to the future. I would say that ecology in the decision-making process, unfortunately, is not the issue. It's a cost-driven situation and more short-term cost-driven situation, simply because of the turbulent economic environments in a lot of those countries. But in any case, there are already people which are really professional in this respect, which know exactly their costs, the location of the trucks, etc., and which we can compare to any top fleet in Europe.
So you talked earlier about how retreading developed in Czechia and Eastern Europe in the early part of your career. How would you say retreading has developed in your markets more recently? So what is the typical background of the retreaders that you work with, and how have they developed their markets?
Mm-hmm. The background is really mixed. It's related to the start of the retreading, which was more or less 20 years ago. There are not many people which are coming now to retreading, but there are still exceptions that there are new people coming and starting new plans. I would say the tendency is from fleet related to the retreader, meaning the fleet owns the retreading plant. This is disappearing, as I mentioned. Then the next, let's say, typical situation was independent retreaders working locally in the area where they are located. And now there is a more significant tendency connect retreading with the distribution of new tires, having several distribution points and covering sometimes the whole country.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how the different markets in the region differ from each other in terms of their character and the way they're structured.
I think that I already touched this question in several questions which were mentioned before. So significant differences in terms of culture, organizing the business, background of retreaders, availability of casings, to a certain degree also regulations, and what I was not mentioning till now, import issues, import and currency issues. We have countries with 0 import tax. We have countries with 15% import tax for threads, which is a significant burden. And we have countries which are in between. And then we have countries where you have all the movements of goods controlled by the government and by the statistics. And then you have other countries where you have a lot of, say, a gray economy situation, which is a part of the economy and which is influencing the retreading. Just giving you an example, yeah. Last year, Ukraine was significant drop down. Russia, surprisingly, was doing quite well. But there is one reason behind that you don't see, let's say from the normal news. Russia government implemented a new rule related to the tires. You must have barcodes. When you are importing the tire from China, for example, there must be a barcode, and the government knows where the tire goes and knows also where to collect the casings. The money. Yes. So all the people knew that there will be a new regulation, but it was not sure how it will work. So the importers, being careful, stopped to a certain degree import of tires, which was creating a shortage of new tires, which was supporting retreading. But it was a temporary issue. Now it's solved. Now the system works, and we will see what happens in Russia this year.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, you're right. That's the sort of thing that we don't get to see unless you're right there in the market. So let's talk about retreading equipment. What's the market like for new machinery sales in Eastern Europe and the ex-CIS states?
I would again divide it at least into 2 groups if the people are in the European Union or out of the European Union. Yeah. In general, most of the retailers are buying second-hand equipment. It's a cost factor. And sometimes the second-hand equipment is circulating in one country or in neighboring countries several times. Coming to the European Union, yes, we have there people which are buying machinery, either single machinery. Typically, it was xerography machines which was acquired later on, or some replacements like the buffing machine was replaced, autoclave was used from the past. In some cases, in some countries, I can name a few retreaders, Šimkovič in Slovakia, for example, Radborg again in Romania, also Hungarian customers and Czech customers were able to receive subsidies from the European Union and from the government. So this was supporting new tires. And we have also a few cases in Romania, for example, that people started from zero, not being related to retreading industry, and were buying just at the beginning new equipment. This is not happening in the more east part of Russia, of Europe. I can mention 2 cases. One, a recamic dealer in Ukraine was buying really good and new equipment, but unfortunately the guy closed last year, so the equipment was moved to another company, and a really up-to-date and modern plan was installed in Nizhnekamsk. But it's related to the Kama new tire factory, and it's logical if the company is making, let's say, a modern plant to produce PCR tires together with Continental, and at the moment they are enlarging the capacity significantly with investments, that also the retreading plant will be not a second hand, but a new one. But in general, to sell new machinery, I'm speaking about European machinery, not about Chinese machinery. It's rather an exception than a daily business.
Okay, so finally, you've worked with Marangoni in these markets for many years now, a quarter of a century or so. Can you tell me a little bit more about Marangoni's growth in your area over the years, and what are your aims for growth in the future?
Yes, with pleasure. I would like to underline that Marangoni was not new in the area. Speaking about hot retreading, the deliveries of Marangoni machinery in the 80s were really significant, both for the market and also for development of Marangoni. Also in Czechoslovakia, Marangoni was well known, and they had a representative there, and it was working. So the Marangoni name was already here before I started to work with Marangoni, which was one of the advantages, because the people which were coming from the tire industry were able to recognize the Marangoni name. In Europe, as you know, we have normally between 20-25% market share, and in Eastern Europe, we are trying to achieve the same results. In some countries, we have more than 30%, Ukraine, for example. In some other countries, we are not present, example, Turkmenistan. But in average, we are trying to cover all Europe, Eastern Europe and Western Europe with our presence, promote retreading, and obviously promote Marangoni, and especially our flagship, the Retread system. Comparing to Western Europe, there is still a low percentage of retreading comparing to the TBR tires, new TBR tires. So from this point of view, there is still a growth potential, not only for Marangoni, but for retreading in general. And we are trying to go this way. So we have still opportunities to develop. It's a lot of work to be done. It goes step by step, sometimes slower than we would wish, but the direction is correct. So we have opportunities to grow. We all together, meaning retreading industry.
Well, thanks for your time today, Leo. It's been great talking to you again. And once again, many congratulations for being voted as the Employee of the Year.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks to all of the people which participated in this great award.
Well, that's all for this edition of the Retreadcast. Many congratulations to both Garry and Leo for their success in the inaugural Recircle Awards. Many congratulations also go to all the other winners in the inaugural Recircle Awards. We hope you enjoyed both interviews and look forward to welcoming you back very shortly to the Retreadcast. Until then, stay safe.